Good morning, everybody. Hope you all enjoyed the holidays over the weekend. There is a ton to catch up on. Welcome to Morning Cuppa Hockey, presented by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365, so use our code NATION, N-A-T-I-O-N, in all caps. We got a fun show for you today. We got Drew Shore waiting for us. He's going to join the show here in about a minute. We're going to make fun of him for UNLV beating the Denver.
Stop saying we're.
Colby and I together.
No.
We're going to make fun of Drew.
Put me involved in your stupidity. I've been telling you that for days now. So
I will make fun of him because it's the biggest deal in all of hockey. A much bigger upset than Latvia over Canada.
Do we have your
much
tweet?
bigger upset than Finland over USA.
Do we
Let
have
me
that?
do the intro, man.
Andy, because you're already being dramatic. I mean, we are not 3 minutes into the show, and the drama
Not even one
side of you is just spilling out all over the desk. You couldn't clean up your clothes behind you in your hotel room. It's a mess. Like,
I made the bed.
Can you be professional for 2 seconds, just one time, please?
Not possible. Not possible. How was your weekend, Colby? Happy Hanukkah.
I mean, look, I think we should make this show about you today because you're buzzing at the Winter Classic. Singsy's in the chat already saying Wayne Gretzky was just live on TV talking about meeting the great Johnny Lazarus. We will save the Gretzky stories until after Drew Shore comes on, but let me just give this a quick little, preface here. Denver, obviously, everybody saw the tweets from Bleacher Report and about UNLV beating Denver. Johnny obviously turns it into a Disney movie.
It wasn't me. It was a question I was asked by the Marv Zone, a big listener of our show. Great kid too.
He just has to be overly dramatic about it. And so him and Drew Shore must have started going back and forth at each other on Twitter. And I woke up to a text message that must have came in after midnight a couple of days ago that said Drew Shore is coming on the show 9 a.m. We're going to make fun of him and roast him, which Johnny knows that's never going to happen. I'm never going to take his side about anything. So he's an interesting guy we're bringing on here because he played in the National Hockey League a number of games. And he also played in all the best leagues all over Europe. He had a hell of a college career, played at the U.S. National. I mean, he hit everybody in his career. He's got a really interesting podcast called Betting the Limit, which I would urge you to check out, especially you guys are all big hockey people. And now he's an agent and works hand in hand with NHL hockey players. And we've never had an agent on the show. We've never done that before. And we've talked about wanting to do that for some time. So, Johnny, you can bring him in here and you can start and just be ready because I promise you I am not going to take your side on any of the stupid things you're about to say.
Okay, so before we bring in Drew Shore, I just want to give a quick note on our sponsor, Proraso, the most complete choice for shaving and beard care. Made in Italy since 1948, Proraso has been a staple of Italian culture and barbershops globally for 4 generations. So get 15% off at Proraso-USA.com with our promo code Hockey15 in all caps, Hockey15. And we've never actually met face-to-face before, but just to piss Colby off even more, I'm going to call you Shorzy because that's kind of my thing. I just call people by their nickname, even though I don't know them personally. But Shorzy, welcome to the show. Happy to have you. And how much has your phone blown up over the weekend from that Denver loss?
It's blown up way too much. That's why I had to come on here and set the record straight. But thanks for having me on. Nice intro, Colby. Colby and I played together in San Antonio for a number of games and have crossed paths a bunch in the last couple of years. So it's fun to be on here with you guys.
And you're genuinely pissed about this, right?
No, I'm not genuinely pissed. I just first of all, I run a podcast, so I understand the content business and I understand that. But people like yourself actually comparing this win to the 1980 Olympics or Latvia beating Canada is I mean, I get you guys want clicks on the internet, but let's be realistic here.
They're playing in the same tournament, Latvia and Canada. This is, I mean, I think this is just bigger because of what it does.
You can't possibly think this is bigger than that.
What this does for the club mentality.
I'm gonna give you the equivalent. This would be like going to Muskoka, Ontario in August in a summer shinny game and Connor McDavid losing and people coming out and saying they're better at hockey than Connor McDavid. 100%. This is a game that I don't know if you played in one of these, but it's like these guys
Never,
they've been on break. I don't know what they've been doing on break, like at home with their friends, probably having a good time, drinking eggnog. Then they come back, try and just get in rhythm, not get hurt. It's a game you play where like your stats don't count for anything. So it's like you score four, you haven't scored in 10 games, you score 4 goals in that game, you're still on a scoreless drought, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's a tough spot to play. I am happy. I mean, I think that for the game of hockey, having UNLV have a D1 team would be amazing.
Unreal.
And I also think it just cements the point that Dave Carl's hands down the best coach in college hockey.
So let me just say this too. I agree with everything you've said, and I look at this. Look, I'm happy for those UNLV players.
Yeah.
They're probably buzzing, and good for those guys. Like for them, this was the Stanley Cup of their life, and for the Denver guys, this is one of those situations where you're like, we got to do what and play who. And
yeah, you're trying just not to get hurt, right? You're trying to get back in rhythm, and you're like, you know what I mean? Like I haven't probably skated in 8 days. I want to like find my legs a little bit and not get hurt.
Now, having said that, I want to point a couple of things out. And this is no disrespect because the third goalie when I played at BU was a good friend of mine and is still a good friend of mine. But you play your third goalie in this game, okay? Generally speaking, Johnny, and I know you
I don't think it was the third goalie.
Because I'm just talking about in general when you play these exhibition games when you're on a Division I team. And again, Johnny, I know exhibition games were a time for you to shine. But guys like Drew and I didn't play. Like my sophomore and junior year in college, when we had an exhibition game in the middle of the season, I got to rest. I didn't even play in those games. And I'm sure Drew didn't either. So having said all of that, Denver should still win that game. If they play 100 times, Denver will win 99 of those games. And what bothers me the most about this whole situation, and I sent you the tweet, Drew, and I sent it to Vic as well. Now you have all these people coming out of the woodworks being like, the only reason I wasn't a Division I player is because of politics and favoritism and nepotism and blah, blah, blah. That's the only reason that this annoyed me so much. I'll read you this one guy's tweet because he tagged me in it. He tagged Butchie in it. And he said, the margins in hockey are just like pro golf, razor thin, 5,000 junior A players in the country, 1,200 NCAA spots. Sure, the top 25% of guys are clearly better. Yeah, they are. But a lot of it comes down to, and this is where he loses me, politics, coaches knowing scouts, favoritism, nepotism, and just plain luck with playing in the showcases. I'm not even reading the rest of this guy's tweet because I'm not gonna do it. That's what drives me crazy here, Shorzy, is now everybody who couldn't play D1 hockey that sits around their Christmas dinner and says, I should have been a D1 player, but I hurt my knee. Now these people they're all out of the woodworks.
Well, that's why I'm saying that's like why I think it's such a big deal. Because
you were barely a Division I hockey player. I get it.
What I'm saying, and I take pride in that. Like there's a whole thing about like now, if you saw the caption, like, listen, I don't disrespect club hockey, but I hate when those guys say that club hockey is college hockey. Like it's so not the same at all. And like that's what everyone, on the UNLV side is saying right now, that they're equivalent and they're not. And it should seem that way.
It's like saying like you play hockey in Italy and like you play pro hockey, the NHL is pro hockey, so it's the same league, right? So yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. I mean, I am happy for those UNLV guys, like you said. I mean, if it gives them something to party about, you know what I mean? Good for them. But yeah, I just think it's a crazy take comparing that to the Latvia at the World Juniors.
Latvia.
Well, that was the question that was asked. It was a question that was asked, and
they play against the host country in Canada. And by the way, I say this all the time: World Junior should always be in Canada or like Buffalo. Basically, because the atmosphere is incredible. Like, give the Canadians their credit. They show up for their World Junior tournaments. In the States, it doesn't have the same weight. But that upset, in my opinion, Drew, that's a massive upset on home soil to beat Canada like that. I mean, that
in a real game, in a game that matters for something. You know what I mean? And the best on best. This is like I said, this is a summer, August NHL exhibition skate where guys are floating around trying not to get hurt.
No, the Latvia win, and Singsy just said it in the chat too, has way more magnitude to it. I just think like the disparity maybe between UNLV and Denver is probably larger than Latvia and Canada. Like Latvia still had a couple of NHL draft picks, right? Like, and they're playing in the same tournament. Like these two teams typically don't belong. Speaking of Denver and UNLV, like those two teams don't typically belong on the same ice sheet. You know,
I agree with that.
Yeah.
But I do think you have to remember it's an exhibition game. There's circumstances. Like, look, 99 out of 100 times Denver will win that hockey game. They scored 5 or 6 goals in the third period when they were probably like, I guess these guys aren't as bad as we thought.
Yeah.
Give them credit. I would love to see UNLV be a Division I program.
Same.
I think that would be great for the game of hockey with hockey out in Vegas. But all right, let's not spend our whole time with you on this, Drew, because I want to talk to you about a tweet that you put out. It was either yesterday or the day before, because I mentioned you work in the agency business now, which it's so fascinating to me, all the inner workings. And we've been talking on this show about how, no players are going to go want to sign with the Rangers. And I keep saying, well, the Rangers guys who are agents are going to fight for different clauses in those contracts now because of what's going on. So there's so many intricacies with agencies. But Vic, do you have the tweet that I sent you of his from yesterday that you wrote? And I'll read it out loud for people that are audio only, because I'm wondering if you could explain this a little bit about what you mean here, because I thought it was really interesting. So Front Office Sports tweeted, Travis Hunter is signing with Lil Wayne's agency, Young Money APAA Sports, for his on-field representation in the NFL. Now, I understand we're talking about the NFL here, not the NHL, but Drew then quote tweeted and wrote, it will be interesting to see if athlete representation space continues to get divided as a result of different firms handling a player's contract negotiations and marketing. So, to me, that was really interesting. 2 interesting different things. And I'm just wondering if you could kind of explain what you meant by that.
Yeah, so basically Travis Hunter agreed to sign with Lil Wayne's agency for on-field representation, so his contract, and then he's going to continue working with his old marketing firm to handle everything off the field. And in a lot of other sports, that's a very, I would say, prominent combination, whereas in hockey, that doesn't happen so much. For example, who I worked with at Wasserman, Judd Moldaver, who represents Austin and Connor, like probably obviously the 2 most marketable players in hockey. He controls everything, basically is the CEO of their lives, from like contract negotiations to deals they do to appearances they make and everything like that. But in a lot of other sports, especially if these guys were getting bigger and bigger, they're starting to spread their responsibilities out. So it'll be interesting to see as hockey grows if that trend kind of transfers over to hockey, because a lot of these guys in football, for example, I'm sure Travis Hunter is thinking, I get the best of both worlds here, right? I get Lil Wayne and some of his guys, you know what I mean, to handle some of my contract negotiations. And the other thing to bring up is in a lot of other sports, your contracts are slotted. So you've seen a ton of stuff in the NBA. If you're a Supermax player, you get a percentage of the cap. There's no negotiating. So in the NBA, for example, a lot of guys will hire agents, and instead of taking, say, a 3-20 split on their contract, they'll either get 1% of their contract or even 0, and then 40% on marketing, which is a pretty good setup for the player, right? Even though I'm an agent now, I'm still player first. But if you're a Supermax contract guy, and I don't even know what that number is in the NBA because it's going up every year, but you're getting, say, whatever it is, 14% of the cap. What room is your agent doesn't really, he can't push that any further. It's in the CBA. So it's how can these agents provide value to these guys off of the court, off of the field? So it'll be interesting to see kind of if that moves over to hockey. And then obviously too, in the agency space with the advancements of AI and computers and just technology and stuff like that, it'll be interesting to see if you have more and more guys who are kind of starting to do their own deals or just hire marketing firms or just kind of see how the landscape changes in the next 5 or 10 years.
Let me just ask you a follow-up on that, Jonny. Do you think that this sort of new age of, I hate the word individualism, but there's more individualism with these young kids. They're not afraid to post on social media. When you and I were playing, and even Jonny, you didn't want to put something on your Instagram page because you knew when you walked in the locker room the next day, you were going to get raked over the coals for it. Now, these kids, not only do they post it on Instagram, they drum it up, right? I work with U16 kids, U18 kids, and North American League kids in this area. like the lower levels of hockey, but some of the young kids, even the U12s and the U13s, like they have the parents hired a videographer to come to the tournament with them, create content for these kids. So they're growing up with it. Do you expect that to, like, over the next 10 years actually become a thing in the NHL? Because we all yell and scream how the NHL is the best product with the worst marketing.
I agree. And I mean, I think you see it in a lot of sports, right? Like, even, for example, my wife hates golf. Like, if I could give her anything in the world, it would be for me to retire playing golf. But like during COVID, Netflix launches that Full Swing documentary where they really dove into like the players and their families and what it's like to win a tournament, what it's like to not finish in a tournament, and kind of really goes into, and I mean, I know the NHL did that a little bit on the Amazon Prime stuff, but it's like my wife.
That was weak.
Yeah, my wife, who doesn't like golf at all, like kind of instantly became a fan of like golf and doesn't know any of the players, but now like is able to identify with some of the players. And she's a big Finau guy because he's like the ultimate family man, stuff like that. So I think the only way, like you just mentioned, for hockey to grow is some of these high-end stars to really start showing their personality off the ice. And I think we've seen that over the last kind of 2 or 3 years. But I mean, we're 15, 20 years behind the other sports. Like you said, you and I weren't playing that long ago, where if someone would have done that in the locker room, they would have never heard the end of it for 2 weeks, right? I mean, that was 5, 10 years ago. So I think that kids these days really don't care. You know what I mean? Like, they'd rather get more likes on social media than care what their teammates think, which might be another problem in itself. But I do think it is going to grow the game faster and have your average person be able to identify more with each player, which is going to drive interest and grow the game.
I want to tell a story and then like add to this too, because our generation's different. Like my teammates, my sophomore year at UMass, like we'd always post like on a Thursday night before our weekend games. Like everyone would post on Instagram like about like the 2 games this week. Like it was kind of our, like everyone just did it, and we'd all like flood each other's comments and stuff. But I remember I love the movie Anchorman, and before our first game of the season, I made my like Instagram caption on a picture. I'll never forget this. I was like, "Come to the pants party at the Mullen Center on Friday night, like first game of the season." And like the day before our first game, Coach Carvel, who's still there, Greg Carvel, like, as we're meeting as a team by the whiteboard before our end of the practice, Carvel goes, or Coach Carv is like, "So I heard there's like a pants party tomorrow, Laz. What's going on?" And then like 2 hours later, I see the lineup. I'm scratched. So it's funny. But speaking of that, though, like what my generation now has and what kids now have is they'll have the agent, but because brands and partnering with brands is so popular, they have like a brand manager. And that's kind of where I see this is going, where, kids and hockey players will have their agent to take care of their, on ice contracts. But if they show personality on social media, and all these kids now, like the Matty Beniers, Jack Hughes, like the younger USA guys, all partner with like Chipotle and do videos for Chipotle, like those guys that are willing to do that, they'll probably have more of the brand manager and, people on that side to help get them like social media deals. Cause that's where a lot of money comes from too. Like people and players make a lot of money off social media now.
Well, a lot of the big agencies have hired like some people to come in-house to do that. Like I'm sure with CAA has done a very good job with that. So I'm sure they have someone in-house helping those kids with their social media and stuff like that. And I think that the kids though, just kind of also see the monetization opportunity here, right? Like 100%. You see some of these athletes, especially with the NIL stuff and football, basketball, and even on the women's side too. It's like some of these, I mean, if you have a big enough audience, you can kind of sell anything and make a ton of money doing it. So I think that people are also starting to realize that and want to take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you look at all this new stuff? And because, I mean, you were obviously a hell of a player, especially in college, and let's just focus on the NIL part of it. Does any part of you think like this is ridiculous and why? And or do you look at it and go, damn, I could have probably made some good money while I was playing at Denver? Because I'll tell you, our alumni at BU, we have a lot of guys who make a lot of money in the National Hockey League and they're not down with NIL. They don't want to put money in that's going to go back into the guys' pockets. They just don't understand why. They're not boots on the ground and understanding it probably quite like you do as an agent or like I do, because I'm still around with the broadcasting so frequently. But I wonder how you kind of feel about all that and what the reception has been like with you and your alumni group at DU. And I know you're still like obviously big with the hockey scene, doing the alumni stuff with the Avs and other stuff, with that similar group of guys like Staz and you name it.
Well, the first thing I always laugh because I can't remember the actual numbers, so don't quote me on this, but I used to get like our scholarship checks would be like $1,000 a month. We'd pay like $700 in rent. And I remember getting that check and you'd have $300 left over and just thinking like you had 100 grand in your pocket. Right. So I can't imagine like how I was acting with that $300 going to a bar on Friday or Saturday. I can't imagine how these kids now who are making $5-6 million at CU playing football still living the college life. So I always laugh
Sitting
about that.
at NBA games.
Yeah, flying private to like the Knicks games and stuff like that. So I laugh about that just thinking because I can't imagine what they're up to during their time off. But I do think I'm for NIL. I do think like the transfer portal has made it where like anytime a kid faces any bit of adversity, he immediately is just like out of here. Like it's like I'm not playing on the power play here, so like I'm out, I'm gone. So it's like there's a lot of that, which I think is a net negative. Just for not only hockey, but just for like the way kids are growing up and their mentality. But I'm super for the NIL stuff. Everyone always asks, like, they see these football deals that are reported and they're like, oh, what's the like hockey is nowhere near that. And I feel like some of the numbers that have been thrown around, I feel like in the media are BS. Like, I mean, I've heard of a kid getting kind of between 100 and 150 max, like over even that could be even split up over years. But I mean, you hear people like, oh, BC or BU offered a kid like $1 million. Like, I think that a lot of those numbers are being fabricated. If I had a ton of money, like if I was a billionaire, I would love to, for like some entertainment value, probably be a big NIL guy just at DU because I like to go to games and support the program. So if I could get a Gavin McKenna or a Michael Misa to come to DU for a couple of years, I'm sure I'd shell out some money for that just from entertainment. And I think that, like you said, though, like some of these schools with like really big, it'll be interesting to see, like I read an article on like whether Harvard could ever have a good football team, right? And like at first people laugh about that, but then like if you really start thinking about it, like if they got some of their most successful people to really start putting in money and overpaying some of these kids, like what could the program be? So there's a lot of opportunity for programs there too, especially like some of the wealthier schools.
Well, and I think what's going to really poke its head through next year with the new house settlement, and I think Michigan's going to be the leader of the clubhouse. You're going to see a number of CHL players playing for Michigan next year, and they're all going to be getting about 150,000, somewhere in that 150,000 because of revenue share, right? Because obviously football is going to take the lion's share. Basketball is going to take the next group of it. And then probably hockey and women's volleyball are probably the two next revenue because they generate the most. Like Yost Arena sold out. The women's volleyball has a big TV deal through the Big Ten. Like they do big numbers. That's why women's volleyball's national championship is on ESPN and college hockey's national championship is on ESPN too, which I know, I mean, David Carl absolutely drags us every year at the Frozen Four about this. And we're like, DC, like we don't control this. Like we agree with you. We don't control it though. But I do think next year we're going to start seeing that. The $1.4 million thing for BC and Michael Misa was totally a lie. And even the person who said that BU had offered Michael Misa $200-something thousand is a lie. It's just not true. So, I think
a lot of things too is like, say Misa, I'm not quoting this, but say he did get offered 200, that could have been split over 4 years. And then it gets reported in the media like he was getting 200. I think that, the one thing you'll definitely see in hockey, though, is you'll see less and less guys playing in the American Hockey League, which like I don't blame them, right? You're at Michigan making 150 grand, or you're living in Rockford making 60 grand. So the Jungie, yeah. So I think that, I mean, the one thing it will affect is I think way more guys will be staying in college hockey, which will obviously make the college hockey product a lot better.
Yeah. And that's something that I've said on the show too. I think like when you talk about growing the popularity of the sport, it starts with college. Like, you know, I've said the NBA and NFL, like everyone knows who those players are when they're drafted because those sports in college are so popular. And I feel like there's 10 first-round picks that nobody's ever heard of probably that played in college the year before. You know, I think that's where it needs to begin. If you want to make the NHL that much cooler, it starts in college.
That's a great point. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. But George, we've kept you, I think 10 minutes longer than we intended on. But I want to give you a chance to plug your stuff too. Anything you want to plug before we kind of let you go here?
Yeah, how often do you release episodes of Betting the Limit? I mean, I've heard the show and I see the updates on it. I've seen all the awesome guests that you have on it. But like, how often are you guys releasing those episodes?
We're doing it once a week now, starting like pretty much for the last 2 months. We took a 2 week break for the holiday, but then it'll be back to once a month or once a week starting next month. Would love to check it out. If you guys have any cool guests that would be on, but kind of just highlighting anyone who had a successful athletic career who's now doing something cool in business, and just kind of talking about how they made that transition. Because, I mean, as you guys know, the retirement from sports can be tough. And I think that guys who are able to like really do it quickly and have a ton of success, like, should be able to tell their stories, and just trying to provide a platform that keeps those guys in the loop.
Yeah. Awesome.
How you know what? Actually, I wanted to ask you about. I don't know if people are super aware of this. The game that you just played in out in Aspen. It's an alumni game between the Avs alums and like the NHL puts a group of alumni together, and Lundqvist is there, and you get all these big names. I saw Shaddy obviously was out there playing. Didn't we just played in an alumni game together not that long ago? I think that was like last April or something. Tell everybody about that game. That game looks unbelievable.
It's actually my favorite weekend of the year. I got to give a shout out to Colorado Extreme and my friend Sheldon Walitsky, who puts on the whole game. Basically, he flies in 40 guys and their wives to have an unbelievable time in Aspen. We play an outdoor game. It's like one of the coolest venues, I'm sure, for a hockey rink in the world. And it's just a great time. And it's kind of a time to reconnect with guys you've played against in the past. I played on the Avs team, which is funny because I didn't even play for the Avs. We won the game.
But you're a DU guy. You're a Colorado guy.
Yeah. So now like Jonny can go after this and tweet that like I upsetted Henrik Lundqvist because I won 6-2 in an exhibition game outside after partying for 3 days.
Hey, you can live with that.
So, no, see, I'm not. No, but it's awesome. He brings in so many cool people. Dustin Lynch played a concert. And he literally does all of this to raise a ton of money for the youth program and provides basically free hockey for anyone who wants to play in his program, which has been amazing and gotten so many kids into it. Because as you guys know, the sport's gotten so expensive that all of these kids who live, I mean, he's got guys driving from 2 hours away to come practice and play. And it's absolutely amazing what he's doing. So can't thank him enough. And you guys should participate in the weekend if you can next year going forward, because I'm sure it's going to be a yearly event.
Are you out in Denver right now, or is that where you live full time?
Yeah, I'm out in Denver. So, I mean, Aspen's a 3.5-hour drive. But, I mean, there's guys who literally come from all over, kind of pretty much the United States because it's such a good event.
I'm flying out in 2 weeks to play against like the Vail men's league team or something.
Yeah, Vail Yeti.
Yeah, I'm playing. I'm going January 10th, I think. I'll be there.
Who are you playing for, Jonny?
The Empty Netter guys invited me. They took me last year to Jackson Hole, Wyoming to play that team. And the Vail team invited them out this year. So I'm going in like 2 weeks. I'm so out of shape. I'm like nervous to play in that game.
You got to be careful. That altitude up there might get you too.
Yeah, no. Whenever we played against Air Force in college, you go up and down the rink once and you're cooked. Like,
yeah,
it's crazy. But I'm super pumped for that.
Yeah, well, good luck in that.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Well, look,
yeah.
Drew, we appreciate your time. Probably could ask you I had a lot of like agent questions I wanted to ask you, but about other players, because you it's nice getting a different perspective from a guy who's actually on the front lines doing this type of stuff. So the last thing I do want to ask you about, because we argue about this on our show all the time. Our producer Vic is a huge Maple Leafs fan. I'm surrounded by a diehard Maple Leafs fan who cannot, when we're talking about the Maple Leafs, cannot think logically. And then Johnny Drama, who is such a big New York Ranger fan that, again, when you talk about the Rangers, he loses the fact that he does know a little bit about the game of hockey, and he just becomes the world's biggest super fan. So it's frustrating at times. But one of the big arguments that we've been having lately amongst our group is about Mitch Marner and about what is going to happen with his contract status, his contract negotiation. And again, I know that this is not your client, so maybe it's a situation where you don't really want to answer, but maybe you could talk about it from like a general perspective. If you have a guy, right, who is going into free agency and he's got the choice, you either take that 8th year and you stay in your comfort zone, or you wait, you go test the market, you look at getting overpaid. Like, I keep telling Vic that the Maple Leafs cannot afford to let this guy get past the trade deadline this year unsigned, because then the price tag just goes up. if they want to keep him. He keeps telling me you're crazy. They're going to wait. They can be patient. They're the only team that can give him the 8th year. What is the right way to be looking at a situation like this when it comes to a guy like Mitch Marner and a team like the Toronto Maple Leafs?
Well, I think there's two sides of this, right? There's the team perspective, which, like, as a team, you're in a very difficult spot with these guys, these superstars, letting them walk into that last year, especially if you're on a competitive team, right? It's one thing if you're on a bad team, you have a guy going in the last year because then you can kind of wait till the trade deadline. But now you're going to get almost squeezed to a point where Marner is going to get a ton of leverage in this deal just because the Maple Leafs are a team that's trying to win the Stanley Cup. So, I mean, they're not going to trade their best winger at the deadline. You know what I mean? Unless they get an absolutely massive package because they're trying to win the cup. So, I mean, you saw it a lot in Calgary with some of those guys that, like, letting these guys walk in. So, I mean, if I was running an organization, I would try and have these guys signed or moved, like, going into their last year of their contract. And then from Mitch Marner's perspective and his agent, a lot of it comes down to, it's easy for people to criticize, like, decisions and what guys want to do. But I mean, I think that it ultimately comes down to what the player wants to do. I mean, I know he's a Toronto kid. He might love playing there, and you know what I mean? Like, that's where his family and all his friends are. He might be tired of there and wants to go play in Florida. You know what I mean? I have no idea. I mean, I know him a little bit personally, great guy, great player. But I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to just what he wants to do. I'm sure he wants to win. Does he think he can win there? I don't know. And I mean, it'll be interesting to see what they do at the deadline because they've kind of been really close and I mean, I know they beat Tampa like a year or two ago, but I mean, they haven't really been able to get over that hump and get into the mix. So, I mean, I think personally they need to make a big move at the deadline. If you look at like their last couple deadlines, they brought in a couple like additions here or there, but most of them have been like depth defensemen or fourth line forwards. So, I mean, I think, and I mean, the way hockey is now, I mean, it's easy to say, and these guys don't just they're not just hanging around for free, but I mean, heavy skill wins in the playoffs. And I mean, you look at like, all these teams have tried to like reinvent the wheel and this and this. But I mean, if you look at every team who's won, oh, my daughter just hopped in the podcast. Say hello.
All right.
Say hi. But if you look at, you know what I mean? Whoever kind of builds their roster with the most heavy skill, I mean, is going to win the playoffs. And you need a lot of that in the top 6. And a lot of teams think they can just add this to like their fourth line. But I mean, clearly based off of like the teams who have won the last 5 or 10 years, like you need these guys in the top 6 that are able to wear teams down and stuff like that. So I think they need to make a big move at the deadline. I'm obviously had the privilege of working with Judd for 3 years. So I'm a huge Austin Matthews fan. I would love to see him get over the hump this year just because I know how hard he puts it in, day out. So I'm kind of a Maple Leafs bandwagon fan as a result of that. So it'd be fun to watch them make a big move and go on a deep run. And it's good for hockey. When you guys talk about growing the game, like having the Maple Leafs be in the mix late in May or June would be awesome.
But Austin cares more about the likes.
Austin doesn't care more about the likes. That is not true. I think that like he's a guy who is able to I think he works at the game as hard as anyone.
I tell our producer all the time, I'm like, you guys should start a GoFundMe and pay Matthews $150,000 a win in the playoffs if you really want to get the Toronto Maple Leafs to win. Only because I just want to get Vic as stirred up as I possibly can. He's too easy. It's too easy to stir these two guys up about their teams.
Well, I think that, I mean, if you want to touch on the Rangers real quick, I think they need to throw this. I think they need to throw the C on Vincent Trocheck as quickly as possible to try and get this ship turned around. I know that Colby played with them a bit too, but absolute stud warrior, and he seems like one of the guys who's still playing really hard out there. So I think if I was kind of in charge there, the first thing I do is throw the C on him and get the ball moving in the right direction.
I agree.
I told the story on the show that, you know, I remember when I came to San Antonio, and I was like telling Johnny this before you came on, it kind of blurs together and you don't remember where you played with certain guys. And like, I came to San Antonio off of playing in Finland, I believe I was, and I only was there for a couple weeks because my groin was all torn up. But I remember like the first practice, the biggest thing that stood out to me was like, oh my God, who's that guy? And it was Vinny. It was Trocheck. Like, he just was different. The guys you played with in the American League that you could watch for like 5 minutes and go, that guy doesn't belong here. He was one of those guys. I know I've told that on the show before, Johnny, or at least I've told you. You could just tell right away. Like, he had some holes he had to work on, which he obviously did, but like, different player than everybody else. You know, no disrespect, because we had a lot of guys on that team. yourself included, that had really solid NHL runs, but he was just different. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, he's a guy that can kind of just do everything, right? Like, he's an amazing bumper net front guy on your first power play. He can win faceoffs. He can kill penalties. But I mean, it seems like too. I mean, I know that it's been talked about a million times over and over in the media, but about guys kind of quitting and not playing hard. But he's definitely not a guy who will do that, and is a guy who's still going to play hard every single night, regardless of kind of how many they've lost in a row. So throw the C on him and let's go.
Yeah, and I know the players don't care, but he's also really the guy that stands up to the media and answers the tough questions too. Like, I know players don't really care about that stuff, but you know, he's the one that's in there every game answering all the questions, right? Like, that's important too, I think, especially in a time like this where every question they're getting asked is negative. So, you know, it's just as annoying to answer, I'm sure, as it is to ask them, because we have to ask these questions every game, and it's brutal to try to come up with something positive when there's nothing positive to ask. But either way, Shorzy, we thank you for the time today. Austin Matthews walks so you can run in Zurich. That's the narrative we're pushing after this show too. But we appreciate you, and we'd love to have you back on.
Swiss League champion you're talking to right now.
Yeah,
more than welcome.
All right, awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, see you, Shorzy.
Happy New Year. Awesome stuff. The UNLV Denver stuff we just had to play up a little bit, but Colby, a lot of NHL stuff over the weekend. I mean, you, me, Vic, we were arguing about the Blackwood contract, which already feels like a month ago. Todd McClellan takes over in Detroit. A ton of different things going on. Michkov 1-1 last night. I think that maybe made you a little bit quiet. Cutter Gauthier's comments about playing the Flyers. Like, where do you want to start?
That was
we have
dumb.
a lot to catch up on.
I don't like. Listen, Cutter is not in a situation like the way that he's playing to be like shit talking right now. And listen, I love this kid is a quote machine.
Yeah,
honestly.
he is.
He's a quote machine. He's not afraid to be cocky, which again, I love that. I'll be hard on him when I think it's appropriate. I'll praise him when I think it's appropriate. I think you know that about me. I mean, we did those Twitter wrapped things you made me do. And you know, I do think on tomorrow's show, we need to go through our Twitter wraps. I think that would be pretty funny.
So accurate.
but you know, listen, Gauthier's just been okay this year. Like, I think we both expected him to be really good based on how good and how dominant he's been at other levels. I would venture to say Will Smith in San Jose is playing better than Cutter Gauthier is. It took Will Smith a little bit of time, but it definitely he definitely looks like he's playing a little bit better even than Cutter Gauthier is out in Anaheim. I don't know why Gauthier said that. He did. I thought the Flyers handled it pretty well. I love the way John Tortorella handled it. Vic is reminding us that Gauthier had 1-1 yesterday, so that's good. But it you know, Torts was hysterical about it. But I think the more interesting topic with the Flyers is Matvei Michkov and the way that he's being handled. And he gets a goal and an assist last night. I watched 3/4 of that game last night. So I didn't see the end of it, but I will say this. The kid sure, like, you watch Michkov last night and you watch the way he's winning battles on walls. You watch the way he looked like he had energy back in his game. He was all over the puck. He was on top of, you know, the blue paint pretty consistently. And, you know, even the goal that he had was kind of a little bank play. He could have had another assist. He set Lawton up on a 2-on-0 where he probably could have shot. You probably would like to see him shoot, but it's been a struggle for him. I mean, he's got 2 points in his last like 7 or 8 games. His minutes were back up last night, but previously had only been playing 9 or 10 minutes. He got sat in a third period. And Torts came out and said, look, I need to teach this guy how to play in other areas of the game. You can't be an NHL player and only be able to play from the top of the circles in. It just doesn't work unless you have Ovi's shot or you have blazing speed or whatever. And Singsy says it in the chat, like his skating is a little bit of a problem. It is. He doesn't get up and down the ice real fluently, but again, top of the circles in, he's really dangerous. And that's why he's struggling, because there's a whole other 160 feet of ice that you got to be able to play on to survive in the National Hockey League.
But let me ask you this question, because I'm interested in your opinion. Obviously, I don't watch as much as the Flyers as you do, but the Flyers right now are 4 points back of a playoff spot. Do you still try to teach these lessons to Michkov in the, I guess, frame of mind of like developing him, or because you're in the playoff hunt, like, does he get a little bit more leeway because you need that guy in your lineup?
Well, listen, I think that
the power play helps their team. Like, they need him out there on the power play.
Yes, but the power play hasn't been good for a while now. I mean, they're struggling. So here's what I'm going to say.
You get what I'm asking you? Like, does he get a little bit more leeway with the better the team does?
So it's a good question, believe it or not. And here's what I would say. Here's what I would say. If you saw Tortorella's comments, and he talked about how this guy seems like he's hit a wall, right? He played 47 games, was his career high in the KHL over 7 months. That season starts early, right? It is a true thing for young players to hit a wall. Most of them go through that. And that's what it looks like with Michkov. He looks tired. It's not that he can't play. It's not that he's not incredibly skilled. But the problem is he looks like he's hit a little bit of a wall. And you've got to find a way to manage him in order to keep his energy up. And that was the big focus from John Tortorella's comments, was we got to get his energy back up. It's hard to find that in the middle of a season when you feel exhausted. So to answer your question, I don't think it's linear. I think it has to be kind of on a case-by-case basis. He helps the team on a power play. There's no doubt. But there are times when game gets tight, where a game is tight and they're potentially up a goal, where you have to worry about what he's going to do in his defensive zone, what he's doing away from the puck, right? You're not looking to turn this guy into a checker, but there is a bare minimum that you have to do to be one of the great players. Look at all of the greats. Like, look at all of the elite players in the National Hockey League, okay? You could start with Vic's boy, Austin Matthews. He was up for the Selke last year, right? Look at Kachuk. Look at his puck, his play away from the puck, right? Look at Kucherov. Look at how much of a mean prick he is without the puck, right? Like, look at Braden Point. Like, you just start going down the list of these elite level players that win. They do the other things, and they're willing to do the other things.
Well, just adding to your point too, like, we've talked about like heavy skaters versus just like good skaters on this show too. And he's a heavy skater, but he doesn't have like the endurance, right? So that's where the skating becomes a negative, because the later the game gets, the more he's playing, you don't see the effectiveness in his skating because he just doesn't have that endurance. Like, I think that's
look, I don't want to comment. I'm not going to comment on his endurance. But
from what I've seen, I think it's visible.
Right. Yeah. And that's fine. You can have that opinion. Yeah. I just think that, again, I understand what it's like in your first pro season in an 82 game schedule, what it's like hitting a wall, going from 35 to 45 or even 50 games to an 80 game schedule where you're constantly playing. And that's, it's different. And, Steve says in the chat, Colby, you're talking about big guys. Michkov is small. Braden Point's not a big guy. Yeah. Okay. There are who?
Vinny
Trocheck, not a big guy. Like, you don't have to teach this guy to be a checker. You don't want to handcuff his offensive ability. And Torts said that. But you need a guy that you can count on. Again, there is a bare minimum. There are non-negotiables if you want to be a successful player in the National Hockey League. And I just think that it's going to be a learning process. And what I would tell people is you got to be patient, and you got to trust that, they're doing the right thing. And I'm talking Jonesy, Danny, Torts. These guys are in lockstep with the way that Michkov is being handled. So, I see this, the Flyers fans, they want to go crazy one way or the other. There's only extremes. It's extreme one way or extreme the other way. You gotta find a happy place in the middle. And on top of it all, there's no, like, you can't right now, the Calder Trophy, like, it's so clearly
it's Macklin. It's
sitting with Macklin Celebrini, and he's just showing you night in and night out, while he's not only just the best rookie in the National Hockey League, he's one of the best players in the National Hockey League at 18 and a quarter years old.
And I want to address Tommy T's comment too. You ever wonder if players hit a wall because they're partying too much or simply not taking care of themselves? Like, I don't think it's a part. I'll just tell you physically, like, listen, I never played in the NHL or anything, but like the grind of a season, whether it's college, junior, whatever you want to call it, the later you go, like getting out of bed in the morning, you're sore every day. Like it's tiring. Your body just wears down. And I imagine playing an 82-game season, it doubles that, right? So in that sense too, when it comes to taking care of yourself, he's still a young guy that has a lot to learn about taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
I didn't know what like half of the knowledge I had about nutrition and recovery and all that stuff. I didn't find out until I got to college when I was 20.
Right.
You know, like you learn so much of that the older you get. Like James Van Riemsdyk, who we had on last week. What did he talk about? Like what was the thing that the thing we asked him, like bubble something or whatever?
I don't remember which
but you just my point is you just learn so much from other people.
Well, and
about
also,
how to
Johnny,
take care of yourself.
it's muscle memory, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Sean Couturier, who missed 2 years and then played last year, he talked about he had to retrain his body in the summer to get ready for 82 games.
I'm dying at Joe's comment. Joe's comment's hilarious.
and Tommy T says in the chat, Kyle Davidson echoed similar sentiments on 32 Thoughts. They're committed to a rebuild, and that takes years, patience, and development. Like, these guys have to learn how to get through 82-game seasons. It's very difficult. You rarely have these kids like Macklin Celebrini that just come in and they just go straight up the mountain. It's usually something. And for those of you who are audio only, I'm waving my hand up and down because that's usually what it is. It's a roller coaster. It's peaks and valleys. And it's trying to figure it out. So look, good for Michkov for after getting benched and not playing in a whole third period. It seems like he gets really motivated by these types of things. So if you're a Flyers fan, I'm just warning you guys, know that this will continue to happen because they sat him out for 2 games. He came back and he went on a tear. They benched him for a third period, and benching's not even the right word, but they had to go with other guys. Okay. You know what? He came back out and he played his best game that he's played in, I don't know, probably 2 months, Michkov, right? Like he played really, really well going back to like Black Friday is when I think Michkov's play started to tail off a little bit, even though he was putting up good points. And I see Josh's comment, Macklin will hit a wall also. He very well may, right? Like you don't know. Right now, he just continues to go up. And for certain guys, like what does that wall really look like? Like Bedard found a way kind of to get through a whole season and continuously have big numbers. Even Brock Faber last year as a rookie never really hit a wall, right? So there are exceptions to the rule. But what you're having a little like laugh party over there by yourself.
Singsy made a comment and everyone's got 60 seconds.
All right, so let's talk about the more important stuff here, Johnny. Talk about what's going on at the Winter Classic. Everybody follows you on social media. We know you're hanging out with I hope you call him Mr. Wayne Gretzky and you didn't like go hard with a nickname or something when you met the guy, but
I called him Gretter.
No. Tell us about your evening at the Winter Classic, or how many days have you been in Chicago?
I got to Chicago on Saturday night. So yesterday was my first full day. Hung out at Wrigley Field all day yesterday. Did like some on ice stuff. Got to skate in the creator skate, which is cool. So you mess around with like some sticks, some pucks, goalies, breakaways and stuff. But I'm here for Bleacher Report. So I'm at the hotel with all the TNT panel and the entire crew. So I was sitting at the bar last night with Evan Sporer and Jazz and my BR Open Ice crew, and Kenny Albert walked in, Ben Booma walked in, Colby Armstrong and his family were there, and we just sat down, had a few drinks, and of course through the lobby doors comes Wayne Gretzky. Kenny gives him a wave. Wayne walks right over to us, and I've met him before, so like I've never asked him for a picture before, but it was like an opportunity where it's just like 4 of us standing there, like. He doesn't seem bothered. Like it's a good chance to ask him for a picture, and I probably won't ask for him or won't ask for a picture ever again. But he definitely doesn't remember who I am. But I'm friends with Ty and Tristan, his 2 sons. He has another son, Trevor, as well. But yeah, it was cool. Just talked to Wayne for like 3 or 4 minutes. He was talking about how crazy it is in Chicago, how he had to hire a police officer to follow him around because people just like stalk him. Like there were people outside the hotel waiting for him to walk out. Like it's crazy that he's just constantly followed around. There was actually a guy at the bar named Mark who sat down with Kenny and Ben and I and said, like, yeah, my 7-month-old just fell asleep. My in-laws are at the house. I'm 32 years old, but I heard Wayne was staying here. So I came to the bar by myself to have a drink and hopefully run into him. And he was sitting at the table with us when Wayne walked up. And he actually played it really cool. I was like, dude, good for you, man. He got a picture also. It was a fun night, but hopefully there's some...
When you asked for the photo, how did you address him?
I just said, hey, Wayne, like, is it cool if I get a picture too? Because the guy
So
Mark asked for a picture.
You went first name for the great one.
The guy Mark asked for a picture first, so I was like, okay, I'll ask for one too. And then I gave Kenny Albert my phone, and Kenny was like, oh, like, he works with NHL and TNT. He grew up playing with Adam Fox and played in college with Cale Makar. And Wayne looks at me and goes, oh, so they're in the show and you're the no-show. And I was like, yeah, I don't know what happened to me. But that was a good laugh. And then he went up and went to bed. But it sounds like they had a great Chicklets live show. They did a live show yesterday. Him, JR, Chelios, all those guys were there for the live show. So it sounds like it went really well. But yeah, it was cool.
You weren't at the live show? You had been talking up how you were going to be at the live show.
I was at Wrigley from like 1 to 8.
Doing what?
Helping set up and, kind of just checking out all the bearings and stuff.
Did you? I think you went on the ice too. No.
Yeah, I went on the ice. Yeah, I'm going back on the ice today.
I mean, get like
I said,
Johnny.
I said that to start. You weren't listening.
I know, but give some details here. You're surface leveling this. Like, you have people that listen and watch our show that they die for the details, right? They want to know. Like, you have this.
It was raining all day yesterday.
You have this behind the scenes ability to talk about these events. Like, you're telling us you helped set up. What did you help set up? What was the ice surface like?
Looking for camera angles for Bleacher Report because they have Derek Rose and his son sitting on the glass, like a cool content piece that they're doing. Like, I don't know everyone's probably seen these by now, but when they have like NFL players or celebrities like sitting on the glass at a game and they mic them up and they get like the camera directly on them for the game and stuff, which is cool. So Derek Rose will be doing that. So we were trying to find the best spot for him. Going on the ice to do like a 360 camera shot. I did like 2 laps around the ice that Bleacher Report is going to post later today. And then there was like this little creator skate, so we just got to mess around, which is cool.
Okay, how was the ice condition?
Terrible.
Did you feel good about it?
It rained all day yesterday. The ice was horrible.
Soft,
but it should be better today, I would imagine. And I think it's supposed to snow on game day, so that'll be cool. But Wrigley Field is like it's so classic, man.
It is.
It's so cool walking around there. Like, I'm not a big baseball guy, but you have an appreciation for a classic ballpark like that.
When my wife and I went to Wrigley for the first time, when we were living in Chicago, we were like, wow, this is really cool. I've seen probably the most baseball games in my life. I've seen her at Fenway. And to get an opportunity to go to Wrigley, which has sort of the old charm with like some new upgrades, the way that they've kind of done it. It is really an incredible venue. So I'm sure it'll look great and it'll be cool. It's unfortunate that it's 2 bad teams. It's a little bit a little bit unfortunate, but there is a million games on that day now. Like, the Winter Classic used to be its own game day and thing, and now there's so many. Did you get a chance to talk to JR at all? Like, did he remember?
No, I didn't see him. I didn't go to the live show, so I never saw him. But yeah, there will be some cool outdoor games next year, though.
Oh, why? You've got some inside information?
I will never tell it, but there's some conversation going on around here.
Well, you can't.
No, I can't. I actually can't. I can't.
Wow. All right. So there you have it. Johnny says he has inside information. And
why is it MYE not New Year's Day? Because I think New Year's Eve is a much better opportunity for the NHL to get better ratings, because New Year's Day, there's college football on all day. And listen, when you're hungover on the couch on New Year's Day, I think everybody prefers to watch college football over the Winter Classic. So having the Winter Classic on New Year's Eve, to me, is a much better opportunity for the NHL, not only to get ratings, but also better for the players too, and everybody involved. You can go out and enjoy your New Year's Eve, and you don't have to worry about going to work the next day. Like last year, I remember we were up so early to get to I think everyone was at the rink at like 7 a.m. like after New Year's Eve, which was a lot. But yeah, it's I think New Year's Eve is a better day for it. And then you got Canada USA at 8 o'clock. So you go from Winter Classic into Canada USA at the World Junior this year on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, the World Junior has been pretty interesting. You know, give TSN a lot of credit for the work that they do, and honestly, I think it's so great. I think it's so great that like the Canadian fans, like if you were watching the USA Finland game, it sounded like a home game for Finland.
Yeah.
Which I think is amazing. Like that as a player, especially an American player, to have the opportunity to be the villain, and to have the entire country of Canada cheering against you, like they obviously are always going to go hard for Canada. Number one. Number two is go hard against USA. That's like policy at the World Juniors, which I think is great. I love that part about the World Juniors. Like I said, I saw, I guess World Juniors is in Minnesota next year. Is that sound correct?
Yeah.
Which I think so. Minnesota will show up, like Minnesota, Buffalo.
Canadians will go down to Minnesota too.
But listen, that's what I mean. There's a few American markets that I think could do a really good job attendance wise on the World Junior. And I think Minnesota is one of those places. I think Buffalo is one of those places, but I just love when it's in Canada. As I'm an American, I'm going rooting hard for the American team. But I just think that Canada does it better. And so I think it's more fun to watch on TV when the buildings are full and everybody's cheering against the US, like when they score and you can hear like a pin drop. I think that's pretty great. So
I agree.
So let's hit a couple of other bullet points of news, because these are not things we're going to want to talk about tomorrow. We'll talk Winter Classic tomorrow. I think we talk Twitter Wrap tomorrow. I think we also talk New Year's resolutions tomorrow. I don't know if we slip in a power rankings tomorrow, like our last power rankings of the year. We can talk about that a little bit later. Maybe that's what we do tomorrow.
Teams that had the best calendar year, we can do that.
Yeah, we can look at some different some different things like that. But let's just tap a couple of things out real quick, because yes, you mentioned off the top the Mackenzie Blackwood contract. We argued about this in our chat. You, me, and Vic, we went at it actually about this. You and I both thought this is a good signing. You know, you just paid Mackenzie Blackwood $5.25 million, which is the 18th. It's ranked for starting goaltenders number 18th on the AAV chart, right? So you paid the guy exactly what he's worth, right? He's a mid-level starter in the National Hockey League. He's probably
but he's also been on shit teams.
Oh, listen, I agree. I thought it was a great contract though, because you're probably talking about a guy, when you start ranking goaltenders in the NHL, who's probably sits somewhere on the high side of 12 and on the low side 18, right? Like it's with the opportunity to probably move up if he's on a good team, right?
I mean, I think most people would want him to be the starter for Canada for Four Nations. I don't even think he made the team. I don't think he made it, right? Blackwood.
No, he's not. He's not going.
No, but I think that from what I've heard, or Jason Demers is one of those guys too. Like he said, Blackwood should be the starter for Canada. I don't know how he didn't make that team.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean it was Bennington, Hill, and Montembeault, and we'll see what happens here. But I think the argument was that, like, I think now Colorado has cost certainty in net. And I think for Colorado, they need cost certainty. And once the cap is up over $100 million, which is in the very near future, this doesn't start till next year. You're talking about your starting goalie being, counting for less than 5% of your cap. Like that's pretty good cap management, if you ask me. That's pretty good cost certainty for the next 5 years, right? When the cap is $115 million in 5 years and he's making $5 million, now you have all your money for all your superstar players that you have to sign. Like I liked the move
I agree.
for the Colorado Avalanche. I thought it was smart.
And they're trying to get Rantanen signed. That's going to cost them a lot. I think, and Blackwood, again, like I mentioned before, Ben Wasserman, who, a buddy of mine commented that he's mid, but like the Devils teams he played on were rebuilding Devils teams. I know the 22-23 season was like the Devils breakout year, I guess, where they made the playoffs and went to the second round. But like, Blackwood in that year maybe wasn't at his best. I think he got hurt that year, and maybe that's a down year for him. But for the most part, like his early Devils years, he was good. And then, these past couple of Sharks seasons, like he's been solid on really bad teams. So you're seeing him on finally what is a good team, and to me, like a legit contender in Colorado. And I know it's been 5 games, but the numbers are supporting it.
Yeah.
You know, and Colorado, they've shown in the past too, they don't need stellar goaltending to win. They need someone that could have
They need 900
and 910. Yeah, like a
yeah,
910.
they can win with a 910.
Yeah.
I agree with that. They can win with a 910. So, Johnny, for me, I think the last thing we hit on is the coaching change in Detroit. And the big question that I have, did the Detroit Red Wings make a mistake not hiring Joel Quenneville? Did they make a mistake not going down that path? And the information that I was given and what people told me was that they would have liked to have made that choice. But they thought that in the middle of a season, just too distracting. I don't know how much I buy that, but I don't know like what your I think that's a short-sighted decision if that's really the big reason why. I think that's probably just more of an excuse, but you bring in a guy who's, you could call him a proven commodity.
Has he won a cup as a coach?
No,
I don't think so.
No, but he seems to continue to get hired, right? So he's obviously doing something right.
Yeah. Listen, I said it before, like, I don't know much about Todd McClellan's like style. I know you mentioned it's a 1-1 to go to, and maybe the LA Kings guys didn't love playing that. But this Detroit team, are they built strong enough to play like the 1-3-1 and thrive off of it? I know they won last night.
I think a 1-3-1
the personnel.
I think in a 1-3-1, you can take a less talented team and you can get more results. I think that's one of the reasons you get into a 1-3-1, right? Or if you have a team that can counter and you have a team that's good on the rush, you create turnovers in the neutral zone, and then you that's where you generate your offense from. It's not a grinded out chip and chase system. You're trying to create turnovers by defending the neutral zone more importantly than you forecheck, basically. So it does wear you down as a player sitting back like that and constantly defending the neutral zone. It's never worked for him wire to wire. That's always been the problem with Todd McClellan teams, is that they can't get wire to wire with their 1-3-1. So I don't know, man. I'm a little surprised that Joel Quenneville hasn't been hired. I really am. I mean, Stan Bowman got a job. These guys, they were reinstated. I guess it's different. Stan Bowman doesn't have to face the media every day in every city as a GM, where Joel Quenneville will have to look into the media's eyes and answer questions every single day. So I think that's probably one of the big reasons why he's probably sitting at home, but we'll see what happens. I would have thought somebody would have hired Joel Quenneville. And listen, maybe it's going to end up being the Rangers, because how much longer is Peter Laviolette going to last when they're losing games the way that they're losing?
I think at this point, Laviolette's going to finish out the season. If he's made it this far through this, what else? I mean, they're at rock bottom. So if they haven't done it yet, I don't see why they would do it now. I don't know if you can bring someone in that can turn this around right now. I
don't agree. I disagree. I think with Dolan, could wake up today and make that decision. I don't foresee Jim the Swede. I would tell you a hard no on that. Could you see Joel return to Chicago in a couple of years? That I do not think will ever happen. But I don't agree with you that Lavi's finishing the season. If they have another couple of games like this, it's got to be.
I think it's the players that they like really are against. I don't know if it's the coach, like from upper management. I'm saying, like, I really
but upper management and James Dolan are different.
Yeah, if they haven't fired Laviolette yet, I don't know what they're waiting for. That's the only thing I'm saying.
Well, but did anybody expect? Like when they fired David Quinn and they fired Jeff Gorton and John Davidson, like, were you expecting that to happen?
No.
3 years into a rebuild, you're 10 games over 500. When you add up those 3 seasons of your quote unquote rebuild, you're 10 games above 500. Did you foresee all those guys getting shown the door?
No, definitely not. And, listen, I thought we were going to have a show where we actually didn't talk about the Rangers for once, but yeah, I do think right now it's at the point where the frustration is more on the players than the coaches or coach.
Yeah. Well, it sure looks like it. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't, and your boy Alexi Lafreniere is on the top power play unit now. I don't know if that's a good thing or not.
I don't even.
He's on pace. Like I said, he's on pace to get 100 points. If you combine last season and this season, he might get 100 points. If you, it's not fun for me when Lafreniere is not playing well. By the way,
Yeah.
It's more fun when you can at least have some form of an argument. It's not even like you're so dead and deflated about him that I got to tell you, it's not even fun to text you and give you shit about him. It's unfortunate.
Well, so that's the sad part too right now about this Rangers team. Like Larry Brooks put it out yesterday, like he thinks the players have quit on, the coach, the GM, the city, the team, and whatever. But I think it's at the point where like the fans have now quit on the team. Like the fans, I don't even think the fans are not that matters, Colby. I'm just saying from a fan's perspective, like I don't think the fans are rooting for them to even turn it around. Like I think we're past that point where the fans are just like so over the core that they're not even like interested in the Rangers even making the playoffs.
I mean, listen, I think that it's easy to, you go from anger and then you have empathy and then you have, you're like, this is pathetic. And then you just don't care. I mean, it's like you're going through the stages of grieving.
They have sucked the life out of the fans.
If the New York Rangers win 4 or 5 games in a row, all you guys will be back on the happy train, back on the bandwagon.
I really don't think so. I don't think so.
If that happens, come on, listen.
Unless there's a trade. If they make a trade and do it, if they make a trade and do it, maybe. But if there's no trade and they do it, I don't think anyone's going to fall for it.
This is just a defense mechanism for when you're not feeling good about your team. Come on, let's be honest about it. We know that that's if they start winning again, everybody will be happy, and then there's a chance they could. I mean, it looks really bad, but the 5 steps of denial.
Vic just word, I've done this a billion times.
Yeah, this is Vic's life being a Toronto Maple Leaf fan. So. Riding that roller coaster, but we'll see what happens. I mean, look, I don't agree with you though that Lavi's just like all set for the rest of the year. The reason I don't believe that is because I don't think Chris Drury's all set. Like, again, with Dolan, you just don't know. Billionaires just sometimes can be erratic in their thinking when they make these firings and they make these hirings. It's their team, it's their toy. They get to make those decisions, and we'll see what he does. So
if you had to guess, let me ask you, if you had to guess, how much longer do you think Laviolette lasts?
Well, look, I think
by 4 Nations Laviolette's coaching the Rangers still.
I mean, I would say no if they continue this way. I mean, you watch the way that they're playing. They're not in games. They're taking bench minor penalties. But
and they pissed away the easy part of their schedule.
In my opinion, why does Chris Drury get to hire another coach?
I don't think
like I probably am making a GM change at that point. Yeah. And then I'm letting the new GM go through an evaluation process and most likely hire their own guy. Hire their own coach, maybe have an interim, maybe Michael Pekka takes over for the rest of the year. And then, I don't know who their American League staff is right now. I've definitely lost track of that. I know they've had some good ones. They lost, who's the guy in Edmonton right now? I'm drawing a blank. They lost him, they snagged him out of Hartford. Hartford's done a nice job developing coaches the last number of years. They really have, but I don't know. Like, I think that, I think that Drury would be first to go, in my opinion, unless he pulls the trigger on Lavi and Dolan. Like, how tight are Dolan and Drury? Like, how are those conversations? Does he have to call Dolan and say, I want to do this today? And then Dolan says, well, hold on, you can pack your bags too. Like, you just don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But the way that they're playing, the uninspiring way that they're playing, they're going to have to make a change. People are going to stop showing up, right? And that's usually when an owner's like, okay,
so it's still $160 to get into the damn building.
And that's crazy. Probably to sit way up at the top.
Yeah, it's
I'm sure those low level seats are still not are still not cheap. So, all right, last thing I want to say, I want you to have a lot of fun.
He got triggered there.
Yeah, it's all right.
Trigger.
You know,
Yeah.
Vic's already on holiday vacation here probably, but couple of little things. Alexander Ovechkin. By the way, I haven't seen Jeremiah in our show chat the last couple of days. I wonder if that's a developing story or something like that. But
What do you mean?
I just haven't seen him in here. Like he's missed a couple of shows in a row. So
Is that a call out?
It's not a call out. I'm just saying I haven't seen him. I'm getting ready to talk about Ovechkin and the Caps, who they did lose last night, but Ovi comes back. He gets a couple of goals. Like he might get the record this year. Like
25 away, right?
He might do it this year. Like I'm not gonna lie.
24 away.
He may do it. So we'll see what happens there. Sidney Crosby passes Mario Lemieux as in assists for the Penguins as he just continues to drag that team along. I mean, just full on dragging that team along. And then Rod Brindamore, fastest to 300 wins, which is probably why he makes the money that he makes, and he's always in demand like he is.
He's unfireable.
I've seen a lot of Flyers fans saying he should be coaching the Philadelphia Flyers. He was a Flyer. He was a great Flyer. There's no doubt about that, but he won a cup in Raleigh, and I think his heart's in Raleigh. So I just wanted to give those little shout outs, Johnny.
Patty Kane too. 1,300 points.
1,300 points. That's right. Yeah. And I saw someone say
Zachary in the chat just now.
Super disrespectful. It's already, oh, there it is. Zachary. Yeah. Yep. No Kane is super disrespectful. No Kane shout out is disrespectful. You're right. I listen, I do think Patrick Kane is the greatest American player of all time. There's no doubt about that. There he is in the chat. All right. See, I was worried about him. We didn't see him for a couple of shows. I was a little concerned about it. Talking about his Washington Capitals continue to, they lost last night, but they won a good game the night before. They made the Leafs look like an American League hockey team in that night. So, all right, I feel better now. I was starting to worry that Jeremiah had moved on from us or something like that.
Yeah, we kind of skipped over that Timo Meier hit also. I wasn't watching that game. Listen, I'm not going to comment on something that I don't really have the temperature on. I saw the hit on social media and everyone made a big fuss about it. They called it a 5 in a game, I think, but the hit wasn't that bad. I mean, I'm not going to comment on it much because I didn't really watch it.
I saw replays of it. Again, it's tough because you see all these replays and you're watching them in slow motion. Like he didn't lead with his leg, like he leads with his shoulder. Body, and he's sort of cutting.
The leg catches Natchez because Natchez is trying to dodge him. Natchez's leg is
like to me, that's just kind of an unfortunate hockey play. I don't think it was dirty. You made the call that you made. I'm glad that there was no suspension. I did see on Twitter, though, right away, Singsy was like defending Meier. We know Singsy's is a Devils guy. He's always going to defend his Devils. If that was a Ranger, Singsy would have been signing him up for 50 to life in Leavenworth, probably. So I did see that on Twitter and had a couple of good laughs at Singsy's reaction to that whole thing. But listen, I'm glad nobody's hurt. Nobody got suspended. Nobody's hurt. Everything's okay. There are going to be there are going to be unfortunate hockey plays that are not intentional, and again, I always say it, you can't take your whole you can't judge the whole play in slow motion. It can only be a small part of the pizza.
I will say I just saw Sean G. I was being facetious. I believe Nate just went down from the hit, just milked it a bit too much. When you do get hit like that, like you're gonna milk it for the 5-minute major. Like that's something that players. I mean, listen. I didn't watch the game, so I don't know how long Natchez was down there, or was maybe faking the injury. And I'm using air quotes for people that are listening to audio only. But like when you're hit in a vulnerable position as a player, to try to get your team the 5-minute power play. Like you're right. Am I wrong in saying that?
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too, Johnny, and I like sometimes you take a hit like that and it's almost like a little scary.
It also does hurt, probably. Yeah.
Well, it hurts. Yeah. And you're not sure, right? Like when you took that puck to the face and you lost all your teeth, like you weren't sure, right? Like it's scary until or maybe you knew right away all your teeth.
Well, I just had my hand over my mouth and I just went like right to the bench.
Exactly. But like I took a pretty good one where I needed about 15 stitches across here at one point, but it was a stick, not a puck. I did take a puck to the mouth in Colorado and I was okay. But like, it's scary. You don't really know. Sometimes you get hit from behind and you're like, but you don't know. Like when you get up, is your back going to be screwed up? Is your shoulder out? So there is this sort of moment where, you are a little bit, you just don't really know, really. You don't exactly know what has happened or what the injury could be or what it's going to feel like when you stand up. So you kind of take your time getting up. Sure, there's probably a little bit of trying to draw on that 5-minute major. What team doesn't want a 5-minute power play, especially if you're a power play guy? But I think all those factors are true.
Yeah. And listen, I've gotten laid out a ton in my life, and I'm actually sending a video to Vic right now. The one time I laid on the ice for like, a long amount of time, we were playing that Friendship 4 tournament. I made a drop pass and I watched the pass, and this guy in Vermont, probably like 1 or 2 seconds late, came across the middle and smoked me. And I laid on the ice probably for like 2 minutes. I was just like, I didn't know if I was hurt, but my whole body just kind of went into like, oh my God, like the wind just got completely knocked out of me. And I just couldn't get up. Like I was physically able to get up, but I was like, holy shit, man, this kid just rocked me. Like,
just so everybody knows, the Friendship 4 is a 4-team NCAA tournament that's played in Ireland. UMass plays in it. Other teams, playing it at different times just to provide.
Oh, sorry. No, keep going. Sorry.
Just want to give people context. You say the Friendship 4. I don't think people know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And Vic, I sent you the clip. I don't know if you can pull it up or not, but I have a slow-mo replay of that hit if our listeners want to see it. We can go into the next topic while Vic tries to pull that up. But I know.
Well, I think our next topic is bet Bet365 and what you're getting into tonight from a betting standpoint.
So tonight, only 3 games, pretty late night around the NHL, but we're going to look at the Winnipeg Jets. They are taking on the Nashville Predators. Winnipeg coming off a big win against Ottawa the other night. And the Nashville Predators, we know how streaky they've been all year long. You actually can get plus odds taking Winnipeg in regulation at plus 105. So we're going to go with the Winnipeg Jets tonight on home ice, where they are, I believe, 13-3-1. So a really strong home ice record as well. Let me just double check that. Yeah, 13-3-1 at home. Nashville has not been good at all on the road. They're 3-11-4. So I think all odds point to Winnipeg being able to win this one in regulation. And that will be the bet of the night. And Vic, I don't think actually can pull up the video, so I don't know if we're going to show that. He said,
all right, well, look, let's remind everybody, make sure you give the show a like today. You guys have been great about that. Our plan show today, obviously, we're going to do a show tomorrow morning. We'll be off New Year's Day, but then we'll come back on Thursday. So we're not going to leave you guys hanging this week. Saw a lot of great comments about the JVR episode, the Christmas special episodes. We appreciate the fact that you guys all caught all that. Obviously those are holidays. We're not sure exactly if you guys are interested in being with us on holidays. So that's why we're just kind of pumping some stuff out and making it available to you all. So again, if you're here with us, like the show. If you're not subscribed to the Daily Faceoff YouTube, make sure you do that. The World Junior coverage has been awesome. Jeff Merrick's been live in Ottawa, and he's had all the different prospect people on. He's had families, billet families, agents, like you name it. It's been really interesting to see. And then you'll have I'm not sure if DFO Live is live this week, or if they're on holiday. I should know the answer to that, but I don't know the answer to that question. But obviously you guys know the lineup. You got the noon show with Tyler and Frank. You got the 3 p.m. Stephen Ellis's content, who's a Daily Faceoff, full-time contributor, has been amazing. Canada, USA tomorrow night. Yep. We'll obviously talk about that game at least for a minute or two tomorrow. That has big implications. It'll be really exciting to watch. Johnny will put that tweet out with the video of him getting smoked. So get to his Twitter page. Yeah, come on, put it out there. I want to see it. Or at least text it to me and I'll put it out there. Johnny, listen,
I'll text it to you.
Have fun, enjoy. I called probably 5 Winter Classics for Westwood One when they used to do the radio. And I got to be around the Winter Classic for a number of years. And so make sure you enjoy it. Make sure you network, get us some good guests for our shows.
Yeah.
Make some people like you. Try not to be too annoying and too creepy and too super fanny.
Impossible.
My wife saw your social media yesterday and was like,
yeah, what's she
Jonny,
say?
she just like, you're a golden retriever, man. That's like, even Army texted me yesterday and we both agreed. You're like a golden retriever. You know, you're such a sweet boy. You're so happy. Your tail's always wagging. But listen, sometimes you get excited, you pee on the floor. Like you got to be trained. That's all. You need stern training. We got to get you one of those collars that when you pull too hard, it kind of squeezes you a little bit. Yeah, like a shock collar, something like that. Obviously, I would never use that. I have a golden retriever. We don't do shock collars in our house. But you're like a golden retriever. But you're like a golden retriever that's kind of bad sometimes and just needs to be disciplined and needs to be trained a little bit. But you have fun, all right? Don't.
I think that's really nice. That's a nice thing to say.
Yeah,
I
don't do anything stupid.
Yeah.
Don't call Wayne Gretzky Wayno. Call him Mr. Gretzky.
I'm coming up with my own nickname. I actually, for the people in the chat too, I was this close to asking Wayne to do this. I wasn't gonna ask him to do something in a picture, but evereverone knows that I like to do the peace sign with like the
duck face.
Because if I got a picture of Wayne Gretzky doing that, that would have been amazing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So look, we appreciate everybody with us today. Adam says, go easy on the dude. It's Hanukkah. Listen, I am going easy on him. I've been really nice to him the last couple of days, really supportive of our pal Jonny. My wife is getting Jonny a reservation at like the best restaurant
I can't afford.
So she said, my Hanukkah present to you is I'll get you a reservation at the corner store. We're doing nice things for Jonny over here at the Cohen household.
Zach Anderson's comment's hilarious. That is something I would do. Dap up Wayne Gretzky and go, what's up, nines? That's so...
Oh, God. Get him on the show, all right? If you can get Wayne Gretzky on the show, then I will be nice to you for a whole month.
I'm actually like tearing up at how funny that is. That's something I would do. I would so do.
All right. Well, look, the show's going off the rails here. Look, again, we appreciate you all. We will be back here with you. Last show of the year. And we're coming up on our 1-year anniversary.
I saw J-Rock say anniversary show on the 2nd.
January 2nd is the Morning Cup of Hockey 1-year anniversary. So I don't know exactly what we'll have planned for that day, but it'll have to be something good. I don't know. We might have to go to the well with guests. Might have to have I don't know what we're going to do. So enjoy your day, everybody. Hopefully you all have the day off. You get to spend it with your families or whatever it is that you like to do. Give us a like. Give us a subscribe. Jonny, don't start drinking. It's only 9:30 in the morning in Chicago. Try to pace yourself. And we'll be back with everybody at 9 a.m. tomorrow. So thanks for rolling with us.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.